George MacKay, hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh mate, really, I watched Femme, so it's really great to have you here so we can talk about this film.
I'm a nice guy. If you disrespect me, you up.
I get that.
Yeah?
I'm the same.
Are you now?
What a film, what a performance. You're kind of unrecognisable in your own way in this film. What is it about roles or characters that come your way? Do you look at them and go, I can disappear into this, this is what, I want to play this role, this is the next one for me?
I love diving in. And you want to sort of find something that you're stretching yourself as an actor. I think the point of acting is to, you play different characters, and the best thing is to sort of be unrecognisable if you can be. And I think, so therefore pushing and reaching in as far as you can in all sorts of different directions and immersing yourself and disappearing into it is the kind of the only way, really. Preston, just as a character, is so fascinating. I mean, he's got so much going on in him, and then sort of what that kind of clash inside himself has caused this character to be created that he sort of lives inside of, and yet that character that he's created also is born out of a true part of himself to hide another true part of himself. So he's this kind of amazing conundrum.
There must be a tussle as well for an actor with the character you play, because I'm sure you spend so much time with that character and the material, and you find nuances in them that, viewers might not get necessarily if they watch the film, that you yourself kind of can hang on the character.
Yeah.
And he is, like you say, such a volatile character, but there's elements of him where he shows sensitivity, and it means kind of more because he's not like that at all in other scenes. But his situation is so unique that, is there any moments or any kind of struggle with the tussle of, this is a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy, and you're the person who has to convey that?
Yeah, of course. I remember when I read the script, there's certain actions that Preston takes, especially at the beginning, which are just terrible. And you kind of, you're kind of mindful of what you're jumping into and the reverberations of that, not just the actual doing of it. But I don't think you can kind of, in the playing of him, once you've sort of, I guess, made your judgments as a reader, then it's about just understanding why that person does it. And that, I guess, empathy or just that exercise just takes away the sort of prejudice of your own character that you might have. The film's about identity and the identities that we create for ourselves, and it's that identity is almost bigger than your mortal health. It is bigger than life and death. The kind of persona that he's created, if that goes, that's his entirety destroyed. So if anyone punctures that, and it is so fragile, and almost that thing that, the higher the tower, the greater they fall. Yeah. It is so big and so broad and so strong that if it kind of gets kind of punctured and it deflates, that's his entire being gone.
This man.
Don't bother messaging me later when you're looking for a to sell.
Hey, do you not know each other?
Obviously, very toxic as well.
Yeah. Not healthy.
Not healthy, and very toxic. And like, I just guess for, the scenes, obviously the depiction of sex in this, because it's an erotic film, but it's got this kind of toxicity underlying tone throughout it as well. So when it comes to doing sex scenes as stark as the ones in Femme, and yet it's kind of complicated by being not just a straightforward sex scene, right? What do you do when you're reading that, or when you're on set, you're about to kind of get going with the scene? What's going through your mind? Do you speak with Nathan?
The thing is with this, with this film particularly, the sex and the sex scenes in it are so fundamental to the storytelling. Like, they are pillars within the plot. The nature of each time they have sex, what each character is trying to perform for the others, first and foremost, and like scenes, it wasn't like, a sex scene or a fight scene or a stunt scene. All of them, they were there to move the story forward. So we approached them kind of first and foremost in that, like what is Preston trying to achieve in this moment? What is Jules trying to achieve for this moment? Then the bird's eye view of like what needs to happen to move the story forward in the way that we want it to. Then we had an amazing intimacy coordinator called Robbie Taylor Hunt, who helped us sort of on that journey in the kind of the choreography, and kind of just created a safe space, because once you know what your intention is, once you know what you have to achieve within it. Then it's about like kind of letting yourself go. And Robbie was there to help put in the kind of the structures and the safety sort of boundaries.
It would be surely it would be impossible to do it without a scene partner who you have that understanding with, right?
And I think actually maybe that sort of led to the kind of openness with which Nathan and I worked together. Like we didn't have a huge amount of time. We had a week's rehearsal after we were both cast, where we went like when we met and began the sort of the project together basically, and with Sam and Ping, our directors. And there was this sort of kind of open-minded pragmatism almost of like, right, we've got to do a lot of intimate stuff. We've got to have a lot of sex. We've got to fight. We've got to have this relationship that goes on the journey that it does.
A lot of things. That
and we're, and we're going to start in a week. So like, know, so let's be open. Let's not kind of, let's go sort of everything sort of arms and eyes, our hearts wide open. And that just sort of set us in a good footing to kind of continue.
Talking about, the casting process, was it a long one? Did you do anything to kind of convince the directors that maybe you were the one for the job? So
I was really lucky that Sam and Ping first wanted to just have a conversation, and I think they had me in mind for the role. And it was so we had a meal together, and they sort of expressed their vision for the film and their ambition for the film as well. And the kind of the nuance, the clarity, and then the ambition with which they both spoke was so inspiring, coupled with this absolutely kind of, I don't know, the sharp as hell script that they'd written.
Yeah.
And then the short, which they'd made as well, which again, they're different characters, but a kind of equivalent characters and a world that they were exploring in the short that was called Femme, that was Papa Asedu and Harris Dickinson playing Nathan and I's characters in that. And coupled with the quality of that short, the articulacy of their vision and the script, and them just being lovely, lovely people as well. It's a partnership. So Nathan and I had a chemistry read together to see if, we'd work as that partnership. And Nathan had come in from working, I swear he'd been working on something else about 2 minutes before the audition.
Really?
He'd come straight off a night shoot. He sort of came into the room and he had to leave like immediately afterwards. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And he came in knackered. And I think that's sort of almost how he was kind of hysterically tired because he hadn't slept. And we went outside, he had a wee coffee and we kind of went through the scenes. And it was just sort of, again, this very giggly sort of openness immediately. And then we began with a scene from the film where they're at dinner. They're kind of kind of call it a date together.
Yeah.
And there was this sort of moment within it where there was this sort of flirtatious spark, but there's the whole thing's a chess match because you're not sure, Preston's not sure what Jules thinks and Jules isn't sure and everyone's got their own agenda underneath it and the fronts that they're putting on and their own feelings underneath. So the whole thing's this really delicate chess match, and there was this kind of moment of sort of fire in it, I guess. And I think we both kind of felt the excitement of that. And then the final aspect was Nathan, the job that he'd just been doing, he was enormous. He had such big muscles, and I didn't.
Oh, no.
and Preston's meant to be this rough, tough fella, and I needed to be all intimidating. So it was after that, it was like, right, Nathan, you need to slim down, and George, you need to build up.
Did you do anything else kind of to get into the mindset, I guess? How does one research getting into a character as a very toxic individual?
I felt like the script is wonderfully nuanced, and I felt like maybe something within Preston is that he cannot get past the fundamental clash that is sort of his sexuality banging up against his idea of his masculinity. And I think that without ever wanting to simplify him, I wanted to kind of make the way that he thought quite solid. The older I get, I think the more kind of grey life gets. It's not black, it's not white, it's this kind of beautiful grey in the middle. But I think I wanted to kind of Preston to be very sort of blocky in his thinking, that it's either this or it's this, and if it's not that, then they clash, and how does that work? And that is a real, there's a solidity to everything he comes up against, that it's sort of, there's no bending. It's like, how can that go against that? That's going to clash. Fashion as well was another thing. I'm not massively fashionable myself. I
don't believe that. Come on.
Well, I do my best, but like, it's important. I think Preston has a real interest in clothes, and again, there's a sort of nugget of information that is a passion of his.
Yeah.
That he has a vision with this, and he keeps tabs on all of this. I think he's lent heavily on what's cool at what point, and so has shape shifted all his life. When this was cool, he did that. And when that was cool, he did that. And when that was cool, he did that. And so we tried to plot that in the tattoos as well, that kind of showed the phases that he went through. And we meet him, the film takes place over a short period of time. But I imagine that if we went through the years with Preston, he'd probably look extremely different at different points.
When you kind of get into a role as deeply as you did with Preston, and then, cameras stop rolling the week after, how long does it take you to detach?
I think it depends on the way in which your directors are working. And Sam and Ping spoke from the beginning about how important the edit was to this, into kind of gauging and getting the level right for this chess match. And so often within takes if we're doing a scene like this, they do like, okay, do the interview where you're like really happy all the time, or do the interview where you're a bit standoffish all the time, all within the character, but kind of dialing up versions of the character in the scene. And that was sort of quite it was almost like an acting exercise. It wasn't like you were being him the whole time. The story is so well written. The guys have written such a tight script that it was about kind of, okay, how can we make this beat be as strong as it can be? And so there was a almost analytical aspect to it as well. And maybe that helped being able to disengage afterwards, kind of quick.
Come on, man.
So look, this been called Go to Bat. We get guests on and to go to bat for a project from their back catalogue that they generally think deserves more love. Can you tell us what film you're going to bat for today, George?
Yeah, I'm going to bat for a film I did years ago now, nearly 10 years ago, called Bypass.
You need to come back. I love you.
Tell me.
It was a very low budget British indie, directed by an amazing director, Dwayne Hopkins. And it was a really fundamental learning experience, and everyone on it absolutely threw themselves at it. And just, the luck of the draw, it kind of came and went in the cinemas a wee bit. And also is not a film that had the budget to support, promoting itself in the way that it would have liked to. It's a beautiful film, but it's not necessarily an easy film. And so when you don't get that kind of wave of kind of reviews with a film like that you can kind of ride on, for other people to then pick it up, it kind of, it came and went, frankly, a wee bit.
What is your kind of overarching memory of starring in that film, or like, I guess, learning you got the role and your experience? What are the memories that linger with you? It
was like a rigor. It was Dwayne Hopkins made a really beautiful first film called Better Things, and the cast in that were phenomenal. And I think Michael Socker was in it, but otherwise I think predominantly it was street casting. And Tim's background, the fellow I play, is different to mine. His situation was different to mine. He's a different person, but Dwayne was really, and I was so hungry to have an experience akin to that. Really pushed me to sort of live elements of my life close to the way that Tim lived, and also just the kind of the rigor of it. Like Dwayne did many takes, and he's kind of went up and exhaust the scene, and then once we kind of got to the absolutely exhausted phase, would then kind of work back down to where we felt the sweet spot that we had passed. So yeah, it was the hardest I've ever worked up to that point, and sort of pushed a new boundary as to like, oh, okay, that's how hard you can work on something. And something since then I've tried to keep up with or push again. So like with the character Tim, there's a lot going on in Tim's life, but what struck me is how little he talks, actually. It's quite dialogue free in many ways. It's all in your facial expressions. Silence is like a character in the film. Is that like, learning scripts, obviously, I don't know how you do it, like, especially if it's like, if you're doing like a Tarantino film, you'd be like, what? I'm going to be sat here for weeks. But then is there like this other, on the opposite end of the spectrum, this struggle when it is all about the science and it is all in you and your facial expressions to kind of convey the emotion required to make a scene work? I guess so. Like, you sort of learn the beats of a scene as well, like the choreography that hopefully is completely unconscious, but the order with which you go and sort of take the things around the room, or do the tasks that you need to do if you're not speaking, often are as intricately plotted as the dialogue. That film, another thing that I always remember was we had an amazing a makeup designer called Alessandro Bertolassi, who works on some phenomenal films, but loved the script and came and did this film. And that my character Tim is not well. And initially, given the sort of the rigor that I'd learned from Dwayne, I wanted to be very specific about what he was suffering from. And then so we hadn't kind of nailed it down. That was the one bit that I was like, but is it this? Is it this? And I remember when Alessandro arrived, he went, no, it's his conscience. The illness is his conscience. It's when he is pushed to do things that feel immoral.
I bet that can unlock so many avenues as an actor when there's a scene you're struggling with.
Yeah, or even just like, and that's where like the work that Dwayne got us to do is you sort of, whatever it is, say you decide that, I don't know, like he had a relation, or you know, his dad had rips in his jeans or something, then you know that he's thinking about his dad or something, and you know what you're doing, but no one else knows what that is. But that, as long as it makes sense to you, it's going to read in some way.
So that was the same year Pride came out.
Yes.
So obviously 2 different trajectories for those films.
Yeah.
Like, what did you carry with you into your future career? You've answered a lot, so what I'll ask is do you kind of think about your experiences on that film when you're on set of a film like 1917?
With
little moments.
With Bypass?
With Bypass, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, totally. Yeah. Especially physical stuff as well. Like there's a scene where the character has a seizure, and kind of, rather than just doing the sort of surface of it, kind of, again, knowing that the illness was about morality, like trying to come up with like a movement that was specific to a certain very personal idea with the character.
I'm gonna have to race in a few minutes. There might be other cars on the way. Do not freeze on me now, Tim. Run!
The film's so personal. There'll be films that like really speak to me that no one else would have sort of seen. So I think it's sort of trying not to. It's amazing when it happens, sort of thing. But I think timing's a big thing.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the moment that it's like an alignment of things, to, you know, what people kind of want and need to see, maybe there's space for it, that the moment's right for it, that obviously there's money to kind of fund the promotion of it.
Of course, yeah.
It's that age-old thing of timing. When the time is right, you know, it will hit.
You know, I don't know if you know, it's actually on Amazon Prime right now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
So people need to check that out on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, cool.
But no, thank you so much for your time, George.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Appreciate it, George.